So, continuing on with my Zafira GSI repairs, and right now I am going to replace the aircon compressor, and I already had the AC fluid liquid replaced, so the gas drained to make sure there was nothing left in it, because we knew that there was a problem with the compressor. So at some point I would have had to remove it and resolve the issue, replace it with a brand new one, which I have somewhere in there. So I'll show you how to remove this aircon compressor, but keep in mind that I've already got my timing cover, timing belt, all the pulleys and stuff like that already off. So if you were to do it with all those in situ, you will have to remove all of those as well. Well, not the timing belt obviously, because that's not connected to the AC compressor. However, your auxiliary belt will be connected, but there is a tensioner, which is, switch on the light, that is the auxiliary belt tensioner. It has two bolts, one here and one underneath, and that will just pop out. In fact, I've got to remove that to get the AC compressor off. So that's the AC compressor there with the green label. Then you see the pulley, black pulley right in the middle of the video. So what we have to do is see this pipe. It's a twin pipe. So if you have a look, yeah. So in the middle of it, about there, you can't really see it very well, but right in the middle there is a bolt, which is this bolt. It's a E10, so it's an E-Torx. Actually, you can see it better here. There. So you've got to remove that. Then, hold on. Let's see if I can get my hands down there. There, where my finger is, there is a bolt there, which is also E-Torx. Might be a 12. That's what it seems like. And at the top, I think that is it, and the rest of the bolts are at the bottom, which I'll show you. Right, so we're now underneath the car, so you can see there is a bolt just up there. That's also a E-Torx, and there is also another one there. So those are the three bolts you've got to remove. Two at the bottom, one at the top, and the whole compressor unit will come out. Now there is another bracket inner, which is where all, hold on, I'll zoom in, come on mate, that's it. So if you look at that, there's that bolt right in the middle of the picture, and there's that one there, and that's also part of the bracketry that bolts to the actual block, and it holds the AC compressor in place. I may have to remove those to give myself a bit more space if I can't get it out that way. But I'll see what I can do and then go from there, and I'll come back to you when I'm in the process of about to remove it and show you how I've done it. Whoop, whoop. So continuing on with the aircon compressor removal on my Zafira, there are three bolts that I showed you earlier on. However, the top bolt is the worst one to get to. You need a spanner, E-Torx spanner, which is an E12, right? And that is the worst one to get to. You can't get a ratchet on it because there is another bolt that is part of the radiator directly opposite it. So there's just not enough space in there. What would help is a ratchet, one of these spanner. That'd be great. So that would be another investment for me. Another tool set. So what I did, even though I had to remove the bottom two, I thought, you know what, no, put one of them back in, because you can't physically get it out anyway until the compressor is totally out. Then you might be able to remove it from the compressor, but in its place the bolt can't come out. It will hit the radiator, but it will undo enough for you to get it off, for you to get off the actual compressor itself. So at the moment I'm literally manually just removing this bolt, and it's a bolt about that long. It's very long, it goes all the way through to the block. So basically what that means now is I had to put back one of the bottom bolts just so that the compressor supports itself and it doesn't fall off, and the weight of the compressor is at the moment resting on the top bolt. So as it's resting on the top bolt, it's hard to, it puts too much pressure on the bolt, and it just makes it slightly harder to keep on undoing that bolt. So by putting the bottom bolt back in, it takes the tension off that top bolt, and just keep on undoing the top bolt until I get it off. Then I'll go at the bottom and then just undo that last bolt, and then hopefully remove it that way. Yeah, whoop whoop. Right, so I've got the AC compressor out. There it is. Looks like it's original. It's never been replaced in its life, most likely. It does have a little washer that goes on this side, so I'll remove that. Don't know if the new AC compressor came with it or not. If it hasn't, I'm gonna have to order it. I can access it from above once it's fitted. It's not a big deal, so it can be fitted later on, so that's fine. There's the new auxiliary belt tensioner. There's the old one. This one's pre-tensioned. It's got the little pin holding it in position. It's ready to go back on. I'll show you how I managed to remove the compressor out of there. So this is where it would sit, in this sort of vicinity here, and I slid it from underneath the subframe, and just where that boost pipe is, it's gone just above that and all the way through over there. That's how it come out. So it's quite easy, no issues there. One thing that you have to bear in mind when doing this AC compressor removal or reinstall, in the removal you have to leave the bottom two bolts in, because they can't come out physically until you spin the actual compressor. Then it will come out, no problems. Now I think all three bolts are the same size. Yep, they look like they're all exactly the same lengths. When reinstalling it, put it in roughly where it's got to go, rotate it so that you can put the two bottom bolts in the actual compressor itself, spin it so it's in the right location. Actually, do you know what, all three bolts, yeah, all three bolts including the top one, you have to put them all into the actual compressor, then spin it so that it's in the right, it lines up with the holes, and then put the slider bolts in its place. Grease them up, definitely, that will help you, because one of them was, I'll show you actually. So the bottom one, hold on, where are we? So you've got three. I think it was like, obviously that's the wheel there. It was like this in the car, sort of like that. So when I said bottom, that's the bottom one, and there's another one here, so for me that was kind of the bottom, and this is the top one. This is the worst one to get to, like I was doing it with the spanner. Now if you refit all the bolts, now you'll be fighting under the car trying to get through that gap where it come out of. So you've got to fit this into the gap, through the gap, roughly in its location, rest it on the subframe, put in all the bolts, and then take it, rotate it, line it up, and put all the screws by hand. Once they're in by hand, if you grease them up, that will definitely help. And what that will also do is help you by hand. You'll be able to get them almost to as tight as possible, and then you just have to nip them up with a spanner or a ratchet or whatever you can get on it, you know. So that's my next job, get the new compressor out, see what it comes with, and I'll show you. Whoop, whoop. So one thing I forgot to mention is that I'm also going to replace the crank sensor, the crankshaft position sensor, which is located conveniently It is. It's actually there, but it's so hard to see. Hold on. See if I can get you to see it properly. That's it there. Try and zoom in. Yeah. So that is it there, and it sits behind the bracket of the AC compressor. So if you look from this angle, you can just about see it below the dipstick. It is very difficult to get to. I mean, even if you really wanted to, you might be able to do it by without removing the AC, but it'll be very difficult, I would say. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't like to do it that way. So what I am going to do is remove that big bracket, which is this bracket here. It has some bolts going through it. I think there's one there, couple down there. There's about 3 bolts on it. Remove those bolts and remove that bracket. Clean up as well while I'm there, because I think there was a lot of oil residue leaking from there previously, so I might as well clean up all that while I'm there. And then I can remove the old crank sensor, fit the new one, fit that bracket back on, get the air compressor in its place, fit the 3 bolts, bolt that back on, and then that area is complete. Then I can focus on the timing end. The first thing to do would be to install the tensioner pulley, which is down there, and then focus on putting this back plate, which is the timing belt cover back plate. Well, mine, these 2 little nut housings, they were broken, so this is a second-hand better one than mine, so I've decided to just replace it while I've got everything off anyway. Makes sense. And then after that, it's just a matter of building the timing end, putting all the pulleys back on, timing it all up. It should all be timed anyway, because I've locked it. I did lock it in place at the time. But saying that, I've still got the camshaft pulleys off, so therefore even if it was timed, it will be out regardless. Doesn't matter though, because everything is keyed. It doesn't matter, everything will line up. The pulleys can only go one way, so once you put them on, the marks are on the pulleys anyway, so you'll be able to line them up exactly where they should have been originally. The pulley one on the crank pulley is the same thing, no issue there. That's keyed also. Keyed means, I'll show what that means. So if you look down there, you'll see just below that black cable there is a little metal stub sticking out, and there's a little groove in that stub, and what that is the keyway for the crank pulley, to make sure that it doesn't rotate, and it rotates together with the crank rather than just by itself. Otherwise it won't be connected to the crankshaft. I mean, there are designs like that. I think some of the Vauxhalls have that kind of design. The Ford has it on the Z-Tech 1.6, I think it is. On my old Volvo C30 I used to have, I had exactly that. So nothing was keyed, everything just had to be timed, and then you just basically there's a crank locking tool. You lock it, and then you got to get the impact gun and just basically impact the bolt in place, and hope for the best that it was in the right place. And obviously you can rotate it a couple of times, the whole crank clockwise always, and then you'll see, you can recheck your timing, see if it's in the correct place. If it's jumped, then you've got to redo the whole process. But if you do it properly, you won't. I've done it many times and it's been okay, you know, never had it jump on me. but it's still a pain in the backside regardless. And there's nothing like a keyway where it's just so much easier to time a car, to time an engine. Like Subarus are the same. I love it. They're so easy to do. But on the Subarus, you have to make sure on the right hand side, well, left hand side as in passenger side, the cylinder heads on that, or the pulleys on the, I can't remember if it's the exhaust or the inlet, but one of them, as you get it to bang on the mark where it should be, it will just rotate by itself if you don't lock it with a locking tool. And then you're going to be wondering why is the car not starting. Well, that'll be the reason, because you're 180 degrees out on the pulley. So it's worth, if you do it regularly, it's worth investing into the Subaru timing kit, locking tools and stuff, to make sure that when you lock things in place, nothing's going to move. And then it's just a matter of, if you're not, obviously if you're replacing the pulleys, different story, but if you're just doing the timing belt, you don't have to remove the pulleys. Therefore, you just lock it all in place with the tools provided. No, not provided, you have to purchase them. And they're not cheap either. Anyway, we're going way off topic here. But anyway, regardless of that, that's how you would do a key weight. That's why I love the keyed crank pulleys and stuff. They're so easy to use. Brilliant, can't go wrong. Well, you can, just be careful. Anyway, yeah, let's just get on with this car and onwards and upwards. Whoop, whoop. So one other thing I need to show you is this. So this is the new aircon compressor. That's the old one. It's always a good thing to do a comparison, right? So you'll see the two bolt mounting holes, third one there, so it's the same on the old one. Looking at the position of this little the plug, it was in the same place, so that just plugs in there like that. So you know what it is. And this has come with a protection plate, which I have to remove. It's a hexagon head, and then it also came with these. Where does it go? Hold on, there it is. Right, so it came with two seals, which is great. And there's this. I don't know what that is. And this is meant to go like in there, I suppose. I mean, I'll find out in a minute once I remove this. So I'll come back to you. Whoop, whoop. Right, so I'll give you an update on where I'm at. I removed that bracket, which is actually super off. This was the bracket that was sitting behind the aircon compressor. It was filthy. It was covered in oil. So I've cleaned it all up. Cleaned up the bolts. One of the bolts is longer than the other two. So pay attention to that, which I believe the longer one is that one. And then the other two are shorter. They're very easy to get to. They are E-Torx 14s, I think they are. Yeah, pretty sure they're 14s. Got to them from underneath. Much more easier access rather than above, where you got the turbos. There's less access, so that's that. The next thing after that was to remove the crankshaft position sensor, which is now off. I'll show you. So there's the hole for it. Hold on, let's zoom into that. There's the hole, right where that wire is. Just removed it. And where's the sensor? Okay, there it is. So you have to unclip it from this little harness. This little clip, you just pull it off basically. It sits like that, and you just pull it out. There's the old sensor. It was clearly leaking as well. You can tell the rubber was perished, the seal. So to unplug it, there is a plug up here, which is this bad boy. So I'll show you. Push it in and then pull it out, and that's pretty much it to remove the crank sensor. And that's it. There's the new one here, which is, hold on 2 seconds. So comparing the two, they're about the same length. Looking at them, the new one is this one, I think. Possibly, maybe. Hold on, is that the new one? Yeah, it is. You can see the seal, much newer, and it's not as dirty. It's got a bit of metal on it. Don't know where that came from. Every time I take it off. Anyway, right, so got that off. This is the new one to go back in the hole. The bolt for it is here, which is a E-Torx again, and it's a E8. So we're just going to put it in situ, bolt it in, clip it into this little wiring clips, and then plug it back into its housing over there. So that's that bit. After that, we're going to fit this bracket back on, because it goes in front of the it goes basically down there, so it goes in front of the crank sensor. That's why it's hard to actually get to the crank sensor, because of that bracket. Really, it can be done, but it's a lot of flapping. While I've got the compressor off anyway, makes sense. And I was actually waiting to do the job for the compressor to actually do the crank sensor. Why bother struggling when I can just do easier? So yeah, the other thing to bear in mind, at the moment the engine is jacked up on this bar. I needed the clearance to be able to remove the higher oil sump. Otherwise you can't remove it, because it clashes with the subframe. So because of that, I've got more clearance to remove the aircon compressor. Now I'm not sure if the same amount of gap would exist if the engine was in its original location, sitting on top of the engine mounts. So it's going to be much lower. Therefore the gap there that I used to remove the compressor might not be there anymore. So don't take my word on that for if you actually do the job and realise that it doesn't go through that gap. That might be because your engine sits much lower, because mine's jacked up at the moment. So that's that. And once I've done that, I'll refit the compressor, AC compressor, and then move on. There you go. Right, so next step, I haven't actually fitted the bracket yet. I have fitted the crank sensor, but what I was going to do now is fit the oil filter, because it seems to be leaking out of there ever so slightly. So always check dry, so without putting any oil in it, check to make sure it fits in the thread. Sometimes part suppliers can send you the wrong parts. It's not impossible. We're all humans, and drop it just like that. So what I'm going to do now is pre-fill this oil filter with oil, and put a little smidge of oil on the rubber, so that when it mates up with this flange, it doesn't catch, because then it will slip and it will sit exactly where it should be. It could actually end up catching the dry part of the flange, and it might just twist and not seal very well. Then you'll have an oil leak, and you don't want that. And that will drain very, very quickly, because it is a high pressure point. So that's what I'm going to do now, just so that the oil system is fully sealed, because I've now fitted the oil sump and higher sump and the lower sump all in. I have tightened all the bolts, so that side of the engine is all complete. So that's the reason I'm doing the oil filter now, just so that all the oil parts are done, clean. The only thing that's left is the rocker cover gasket at the top, which is covered with cloth over the top to prevent anything from going in. So that's okay at the moment. Once I lower the car, once I lower the engine onto the engine mounts, is when I'm going to do the valve cover gasket, because then there'll be nothing in my way, like that massive bar that's supporting the engine at the moment. So yeah, whoop, whoop. Okay, so you join me under the cart. What I've just done is removed that engine mount, which is basically the lower back engine mount, which sits in this gap, in that hole up there. It has a bolt, nut on this side, bolt that goes straight through. They're both 16mm headed nut and a bolt. Bolt goes through that way, nut is in this side, and then you have the bolt. Yeah, the bolt goes through here and it goes upwards. Again, 16mm headed, and then the nut goes on top, up there, where you see that hole. Now the way to get to it is through here. I used this setup, simply a 16mm headed socket or 16mm socket, like that. Hold it from above, and I used a ratchet, battery ratchet, and just undone the bolt from this end. And then you also have another Torx bolt, which is this bugger here. Hold on, excuse me. So it's a T55 Torx, and you need a long bit like this, you know, as long as possible, sort of thing. So that's that, and that goes through here. So when this sits up there like that, a bit further up obviously, this long bolt, this one with the T55 head, goes straight through there, through that. I can get in, yo. Right, so you can see it's poking out there, and then it will join onto, where is it? I must have removed it. Where is it? Oh, there it is. That. So that bit there is threaded. That bit there, which I believe is threaded actually. Huh. It might not be. Then that either means there is a knot up there somewhere that I've missed, or there is something still up there that I've not seen. I don't know, doesn't matter. I'm sure I'll find it wherever it is. And that's the new mount to go on. And there are 3 bolts, these 3 bolts here. They all slot into 1, 2 and 3, and they bolt to the side of the gearbox, sort of there. So you've got 1, 2 and 3 just there. So yeah, that's the way to remove that engine mount. And I think so all bolts are 16mm headed. Don't know why, but they are. Very strange really. Normally you'd find a 17 or something, or no, doesn't matter. Just so that you're aware, so you don't go putting a 17 on it and rounding off the bolts. It's definitely a 16. So that's what I'm going to do next. Finish that off, fit the new one back on, and the engine is still raised, so I might have to actually lower it to, there are a couple of other, there's an aircon pipe, which I'll show you actually, this silver one, this hard pipe here that goes all the way around the sump. There are 3 bolts that hold it in place, or 2 at least, that I can remember. There's one hole where my finger is, roughly. There's another one right, you can't really see it, but it's round by the crank sensor, roughly sort of in that direction. And I think that's it. There's nothing above, so that's fine. Okay, yeah, so once that's done, I can actually get, I still need to get the compressor housing, the compressor in. So once I've got the compressor in, that's when I actually lower the engine down. So I might just put the engine mount halfway to roughly where it should be, and then come back, refit those 2 bolts for that aircon pipe, push in the compressor, bolt that up. Even if I just get it into roughly where it should be, this has gone past the subframe, and it will fit through the hole that I took it out of. Once that's done, then I can lower the engine, so I can just finish off the rest of the jobs. Whoop, whoop. Okay, so little update. So I'll show you actually. So the lower rear engine mount is now fitted. 16mm bolt with a nut on top up there. 16mm nut with bolts going through that way. T55 through that hole, as you can see, with a nut also. I'll show you actually. Where is it? Somewhere on the end of that. Where is it? There. So there's the nut for that T55 bolt, and the other nut is somewhere along there. I can't really see the camera, so that was just a guesstimate. And there are 3, which I think these are T20s. I haven't looked. Hold on. Where's the un momento? Oh. No, that's not it. Hold on. So yeah, it is a E20, not a T20. So it's E sockets like that. So yeah, so you got 3 of them. 1, 2, 3. And that's pretty much it for that rear engine mount. Weren't too bad, it was fairly easy to do. Most bolts came off very nicely. I greased them all up when I fitted them back. Excuse me. That's it for the rear end. And then now we're going to move, so you can see I put the compressor in the hole there, so it's ready to go in. That's actually going to be my next job. So yeah, whoop, whoop. So just a quick update on my Zafira GSI repairs. So what I've just done, which I'll show you. Right, so this is the uprated front engine mount with, as you can see, the fillers, silicone fillers. It's not lining up at the moment because the engine is still jacked up. Just needs to lower it in position in a minute. So to be able to remove these 2 bolts, this one and that one, which are E20 Torx heads, this one comes out okay without issues. This one, unless you have a spanner, E20 spanner, you can get to it. But if you want to do it with a socket, it's a problem. So which means, well, not a problem, just means you got to take off 2 more, 1 bolt and a nut. What the nut being this 10mm nut here, the bolt being that one up there, which is a E14 or a 12, I believe. That one there, right in the middle of the picture. So the reason you've got to undo that is to gain space here, so that you can get your socket in there. And like I said, if you've got a spanner, not an issue. You can do it. You can do both of them with a spanner, no problem. And you don't have to touch that bracket at all. So that's that. And then next job is the compressor for the AC, which is just there at the moment. But before I do that, there's that bracket that needs to go up there. So there's hole 1 there, hole 2 just up there, and hole 3 is further up. So actually, I was wrong. One is trying to get my finger there, and then the other 2 are top left and right, basically. So once that bracket is on, I should be able to put this new AC compressor in place, and then we can put this boost pipe back to where it should be, which is at the bottom of the turbo up there. And that's pretty much wrapped up down here. And then I can lower the engine and fit the exhaust back on, because at the moment that's disconnected from the catalytic converter back to the center box down there in the middle of the video. So yeah, coming along, we're getting there, nearly there. As you can tell, I've painted this lower oil sump. Actually, it looks alright. I mean, it was a bit rusty before, so it looks much better than it was. And I've cleaned the higher, the top oil sump very nicely. So that's great, sorted. So yeah, getting there, slowly but surely. Whoop whoop. Hello. So you join me under my Zafira GSI. Just carrying on from where I left this previously. Basically, I've just fitted the aircon compressor. However, bit of an issue. So originally I thought it was the wrong one. Still kind of is. So where this, let me just spin it, switch on the light. Right, where you've got those pipes there with the green seals on them, they're supposed to fit onto the compressor housing, which there's a flange there, you'll see it, and there's 2 holes in those in that flange, and the old pipes should marry up to the compressor. Well, let me tell you, they don't. The smaller side does, the bigger side doesn't. So that's a bit of a problem. I don't know if I can take it somewhere who has a lathe and they can make it fit to the correct diameter. It's possible, but then I'm thinking, do I just, the trouble is I can't send this back because it was like March 2023 or something that I bought it, apparently. Never fitted it. Yeah, that's how long it took for me to do this job. Been waiting a long time for it. But I don't know what to do really. Whether to try and take the compressor and the existing pipes to somewhere like an engineering shop and see if they can make them together, or do I, £140 I think this was, do I just cut my losses and just get another one that will actually fit? However, genuine ones are like around £300–400, not cheap. I don't know what to do really. I've already fitted it, not realizing that the actual pipe work was slightly, the pipe fitment was different. Not only the fact that the pipes were actually aren't going to fit in the flange, the bolt hole location is also different compared to the original one. So clearly whoever I bought it from on eBay listed it wrong, or even though it does say it should work for the 2-litre version, it doesn't. It definitely doesn't. So that's a bit of a bummer. Other than that, I have so far, the engine mount is now done. The sump's all done. This engine mount is done. So I'm pretty much ready to now lower the engine from its cradle up there, lower it onto the other engine mount that I'm going to show you in a minute. Hold on, let me show you that actually. So yeah, there's the top engine mount. It's just been spray painted that a little bit just to make it look a little bit better. That's the new engine mount there. So once all the timing bits go on, that should have a hole to marry up to. And yeah, so but first thing I'm going to do now is get rid of this bar, and so I can actually, no I can't, silly me, not until I do the timing. So next job, timing then. Whoop whoop. Right, so a little update time on my Zafira GSI repairs. Let me spin it around. Hold on 1 second. Try and get through things. So lights on. So we have now installed the camshaft position sensor, which is here, where my finger is, and we've installed the camshaft pulleys back together. And I just realised, I think this pulley is actually out, and possibly this one too. Yeah, okay, so we need to relock that. Might have to offer the valve cover back in place so that I can do that. Anyway, down at the bottom we've got the bracket back on, the engine mount bracket that is. Water pump was already on, tensioner pulley, and there's 2 other pulleys, one here and one there. Oh, it's going to go there. So there's 2 pulleys, one on the left, one on the right. The one on the left has got this orange sort of a seal. The one on the right is a black one. Now the one on the right, you have to make sure it goes in, I think it goes in that way around. So like that, I think. I tried testing it earlier anyway. So if you fit it further down, like that. No, that's not the one. That's strange. Maybe it is. So I'm pretty sure that's the way it should be. Yeah, that's the way it should be. Yeah, so at least I think it is. I'll work that out in a minute. And then I did have the crankshaft pulley on at the bottom, but I've taken it off for now because I was in the process of timing it up basically. So I need to get these pulleys back in line, and that's where we're at the moment. So let's crack on. Boop, boop. So small progress. Let's show you what I've been doing. So the rocker cover is now back on, tightened in place. It's all been cleaned as well in my parts washer properly because there was a lot of old oil residue. So that's all been cleaned. Now we have our markers, one there and one there. So yeah, I was definitely right, it was slightly out, but this one's out by a tooth, that one's out by a tooth. So I need to line them up again, lock them with this locking tool, and then we can carry on with the timing and get it all wrapped up. So let's come here. Right, okay, cool. Whoop whoop. Okay, so update. Round, Now we've got the timing tool. Our timing marks are bang on. That one and that one. Pulleys are all back on. One with the orange seal, one with the black seal. So the one with the orange seal, where you got the hole, stays outwards, and then this one is the internal pulley. So the face of the pulley, it just spins, turns the other way around. So you see it's got like a flange. That flange has to be on the inside, not the outside. Whereas on this one, it's on the outside, not the inside. So now it's time to fit the actual belt. So I'll be back once I've fitted the belt. Right, so we now have the timing belt in place. I haven't adjusted the tensioner pulley yet, but I'll show you a little trick which will make it easier to fit the timing belt back in place. So the locking tool is still in place because I've not released the tensioner yet. So this pulley here, it has to be undone and left till the last thing to be fitted, basically. Now if you don't do that, there's too much tension to get the belt on, and the last bit to go on of the belt, so you have to stretch. This is the most important part. From the crank pulley down there, you need a nice straight line all the way across to the first cog, to the first camshaft pulley, because that is the most important bit. It has to have tension on it. It has to be stretched out nice, and no, it shouldn't be slacked at all. And then across this bit, and then just leave it there, right? Get the rest of it in. So you go around the hold on, hold on one sec, man. So a small amount of update on this timing belt. I'll show you what I've been doing. So fit the rocker cover back on, simply because the references are actually on the rocker cover itself. That one and that one. As you can tell, that one's in line with that one, and then this one is in line with that one. Now if I show you the crank as well, no, might be a tooth out actually. Yeah, that's a bit of a bummer. Yeah, it looks like it's a tooth out. Alright, got to redo that then. Whoop whoop. Right, so we have now finished the timing of the Z20 engine, and I will show you the hurdles that I had to get over to make it happen. So first things first, we turned it over 2 revolutions just to make sure that we are still back on our timing marks. As you can tell, that one and that one still on the timing marks. Like I said on the previous video, I think, where this pulley here has to go in last, you need to keep tension on that part, on that side, on this side of the belt, from the try and get it down there. So from that belt, from that pulley at the bottom, you want a nice long stretch part of the pulley, the belt, to come all the way up here to the exhaust camshaft. And then this bit here is the last bit you're going to put actually on to where it belongs. So then you go back to the bottom, and then you put on, you go around the tensioner pulley, go around the water pump, and then come back round, and then you go across this pulley, and then this is the last point where you got to literally just work it back to onto this pulley. And then at last, on the last one, this is the last pulley to go on, and then you'll have the timing in place. I'll show you the bottom half. So we are now at the bottom. And as you can tell, where that bolt is where the mark is on the crank pulley. There, that's where the mark is, just below it. So if I swing you to the bottom here, you can see the white mark there. And then the other mark is on the casing of the timing belt casing. So that's it. That's now timed. Turned it over twice just to make sure it stays within timings marks, and it did. So I'm happy about that. I'm happy with that now. Next thing to do is to make sure all the bolts are torqued to their specs on all the pulleys and stuff, and put the covers back on, put the timing belt covers back on, and finally I can lower the engine down onto its engine mounts. Yeah, so cracking on. Whoop, whoop. Right, so we are nearly finished with this timing belt replacement on my Zafira. So show you where we are. It's all now closed up at the top. All we got left to do is to fit the auxiliary belt tensioner, which sits here, and then we've got a long auxiliary belt to go around alternator belt, the crank pulley, the aircon pump, and the pulley, and then we can lower the engine down, and I'll show you. So this cover has one bolt here, which is a E10 I believe, and one there, and the top section comes off like that. Now for the bottom section it's a little bit different, which I'll show you. These are just normal short little bolts, that's it. They're easily, this plastic surrounding here can easily break, which mine has. That's why it's got a washer on it. Seems to be doing a trick, so I'll just leave it at that. And underneath you'll see the lower part of the case. There's one bolt there, another bolt just above there. Now those two bolts, they're slightly different. Even though the bolts themselves and the surface are quite short, about that big, beyond that point there is another studs, and they've got Torx bits on them, Torx head on them, and they screw straight into the actual cylinder, into the block, and then that gives you a surface to bolt this in. Now the issue with mine, as you can tell, is the one on the left is actually broken, so I had to make up a washer, grinded one down basically to fit the hole, so that's holding that down. The other side is still okay, that's not too bad. The pulley is now back on, air filter's back on, and all the sump job is all complete. Aircon pipes all tied in and everything, tightened up there, and that's pretty much all the timing stuff done now. So yeah, whoop whoop. Right, so we're nearly there. I'll show where we're at. So we've now got the auxiliary belt on the air pump, aircon pump. This is the tensioner pulley and the mechanism itself. Crank pulley, alternator pulley, and this is the way it goes around. So it goes around the crank, around the tensioner, all the way to the alternator, back down to the aircon pump, and onto the crank. That's it. That's the right way to do it. And also, I feel like there was one other thing I was going to mention. So yeah, to release the tensioner, you need a 15mm headed, either a socket with like a not a pry bar, what's that bar, bruv, that you use for not a pry bar but the other one?
What, the flappy head screw ratchets?
No.
Pick? What did we touch?
Like a solid version of a ratchet.
Spanner?
No. Like this, imagine this, like a ratchet.
Oh, breaker bar.
Breaker bar, well done, that's it, breaker bar.
Yeah.
That's the word I was thinking of. So a breaker bar. You would use a breaker bar with a socket, or a very long spanner with a 15mm head, and you put it there on the actual bolt head there, and you use that bolt to actually spin or take the tension off the tensioner, so you can either install the belt or release it. That's the way to do that one. And Mark's here gapping the spark plugs and putting them in place. So we're nearly at the point where we're going to put some oil in, replace the coil pack which goes across there. There's a breather hose over there that needs fitting. Across here I've got the engine mount to fit in a minute. That's my next job, and we are almost done here. We've got our battery on charge as well, and then once I get this engine mount on here, then I can get rid of this whole arm, that's the bar that's holding the whole engine, because it's kind of in the way at the moment. Yeah, so whoop whoop. So quick update. So I'll show you actually. Engine mount's now back on. To be fair, I painted this bar here. I could have done with painting those bolts as well. I think they look a bit odd, so rusty. Anyway, doesn't matter. Right, so that's done. All the spark plugs are back in the hole. They're brand new ones. I've gone for, where are they? Where did he put the box? Oh, don't know where he put the box. So yeah, I've gone for these BKR5EIX. They're iridium NGK spark plugs. Gapped them correctly, and these, the ones that are in that box, are actually the old ones. So what we got left, we have this breather hose to connect from here to here, the rocker cover to the bottom section of the block. We have this vacuum line to go back on here for the rocker cover. We also have a breather hose that comes in from the air filter, goes in there. We've got the air filter itself, or air filter section, that connects to the top of the turbo, and that goes round there. What else do we have? Well, we've got to fit the exhaust back on underneath. So we've got to fit the exhaust back on underneath after the cat, which is the flexi section, to the centre section. And I've got to fit a bolt for the front lower torque engine mount, I suppose. It's the one that stops it from tilting, basically. So I've got to fit the main bolt for that in, the one with the modified bushes. And also I've got some piping, which are here actually. Got some silicone hoses and stuff here. That's the old crank sensor. That's the box for the oil filter. And there's a couple of coolant lines and sort of that kind of stuff. So all this has to be fitted as well. And they will all go here. You'll replace all of these crappy looking pipes. And there's the good old dump valve. And eventually I want to replace all of these vacuum lines and stuff. They're all very odd. I've got some clear ones, black ones, red ones. So it'd be nice if they're all just matching colour. So yeah, that's where we're at the moment. And we'll show you where we're at next once we get there. Whoop, whoop. So you join me under the car. I'll show you what we've done, and we're near enough wrapping up this episode. So here we have the modified polybushed front engine mount, which is brand new with the inserts. Fitted the exhaust flange onto the catalytic converter, bolt, 2 nuts on either side, 12mm 13s on the nuts. This is my repair for the flexi joint. Brand new lower back engine mount. Going further back, we have this is a brand new O2 sensor as well. This is a modified bracket because the original, which would have been connected to there, it actually broke off. So that was one of the reasons why the flexi joint went in the first place. These you can buy from eBay, they're quite cheap, but they do the job absolutely fine. It has like a bracket that goes from one mount to the other mount, and it has this U-bolts type of thing, and it wraps around the exhaust. You'll see going across there, and it's quite simple to fit, and it does the job absolutely perfect. So all we got left to do is to finish the coal pack, which Mark is doing at the top, and then fit some oil into the engine, or pour oil even, and then a few hoses here and there, and then we're pretty much ready to start, other than one of the springs when we first raised the car off the ground actually fell off. One of these shock springs at the back, so I've got new ones obviously, so I'll have to fit them before I can lower the car to the ground. So yeah, other than that, we're pretty much wrapped up. So I'll show you the finished product in a minute.